What's going on, everybody? Or what's the damn deal, as we say here in Texas? I'm your host and relationship advisor, the Stormy Poet. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for this edition of the Levels of Love podcast. Hope everybody's doing all right out there. Y'all know what we do over here. We discuss the great divide that's occurred between male and female relationships, how it got there, and just what in the heck we can do about it. As always, y'all know I like to start off every podcast the exact same way. For those who tune in regularly, I already know what the dealio is. But for my first time listeners, at the beginning of every podcast, I always like to extend an invitation for those out there who are going through any kind of mental health crisis, or they're just, or for people who just have something they want to get off their chest, man. Feel free to reach out to me. If I can't help you with something, with general advice. I'm not a licensed counselor, so don't think that I am. But, if you got some general things that you have questions for in that regard, feel free to hit me up, man. I'm a wealth of knowledge in that area, man. I've gone through certain things myself. Speaking of which, if y'all get a chance, look up something called depersonalization, man. That is a beast. I'll leave it at that. But if y'all don't know what that is, y'all check that out, man. I dealt with that. It was about a decade ago. Yeah, it was real weird. It's a real weird thing that happened to me, man. And it just comes on suddenly. There's not any, particular reason it can happen to anybody. But that happened to me a while back, man. And that really kind of changed my perception on how I view mental health. So I'm trying to help any way I can, man. My contact information will be in the description, so feel free to take advantage of that. And I mean, after all, how can you be successful in a relationship if you're not right in your own head? You know what I'm saying? If you're not right with yourself, then how can you be right with somebody else? So that's another reason I like to extend that invitation, man, because relationships and that go hand in hand for the most part. So feel free to take advantage of that for sure. Speaking of which, in the news, I missed y'all last week, man. My bad, man. I had a couple of things going on, man. The first and foremost, I went to this event out here in Fort Worth. And it was actually related to mental health, man. This very wonderful sister out here, man. I've been knowing her for a while. We actually just first met this year, but we've been knowing each other online for, 5, 6, 7 years, man. It's been a long time. Very cool sister, man. She had this event, and the event was centered around mental health in the Black community, which is a good thing. And it was mental health in general, but it really kind of focused on that because it's something we don't really talk about in our community a lot. So I thought that was very positive, man. And she invited different speakers and different artists and community members to come out there and represent, man. And we represented well. I came out there, I did my little poetry thing. I got one of the sisters there to record it, so I should be putting it on either TikTok or my other channel. But yeah, for sure, man. I like going through and supporting stuff like that. It was a very needed conversation. So I had that going last weekend. And then also, not last week, but the week before that, because I try to record these the weekend before the week that I put them out. But the week before that, man, my brother ended up in the ER, man. Yeah, I had some weird stuff going on with the nerves in my face. Like, my lip was twitching. Yeah, my lips started twitching. My face started hurting. And then, I started feeling kind of sick. I'm like, do I got some kind of weird mutation COVID going on? What the hell's going on? But yeah, man, I had this twitch in my lip, and it kind of spread to my face, and then my blood pressure went up. I'm like, is a brother over here about to stroke out and shit? Yeah, man, I ended up having to call an ambulance. I'm like, dude, what the heck? And I regret calling an ambulance because, it ended up, I say that jokingly, if something's going down like that, you got those kinds of symptoms, get your ass in the ambulance. I didn't know if I was stroking out or whatever. That's the only reason I called them. But I was fighting up until the last minute to not have to call their ass. I'm not gonna lie to you. It took my heart rate going way up, man. to be the call. Then I'm like, man, let me go ahead and do it because I know what that. And y'all all know why I was reluctant to do so. I'm like, can the brother get an Uber up to this motherfucker? Y'all already know why. Because that bill gonna hit my mail box, and man, I ain't looking forward to it. But you know, it is what it is, man. Situations like that, you do what you gotta do. But yeah, I ended up in the ER out here in Fort Worth, and shout out to Texas Methodist, man, over here in Fort Worth, man. I've gone to them a couple of times over the years, and very good doctors there, man. They check everything out. They're very thorough. They don't try to like hurry up and get you out of there. They try to make sure you're good. Last couple of times I've had very good experiences with them, and the nurses was real cool too. But yeah, man, they said it. They think it might have something to do with neurologically, or with my blood pressure. My blood pressure's been kind of a little up over the years, man, up and down or whatever. But now, yeah, they said that it could be something neurologically, and I got to see my doctor, but I think I might know what it is. I think I might know because I've been looking into it. And I know you're not supposed to go try to diagnose yourself, and I'm not. My doctor, I've been going for her for over a decade. She's gonna figure it out. But yeah, man, I looked it up online, and really, in terms of the disorientation and all the stuff, the facial stuff going on, it looks like a brother had a little mini concussion going on there, man. And I was thinking back, what the heck did I actually do that would cause a damn concussion? And I remember one night, I got up to go use the restroom or whatever, and I came back. Sometimes I sleep on my couch, man. I like sleeping sitting up, man. It's just kind of how I am. I guess that's just years of sleeping like that. The brother had his illegal days where I'll be sleeping on all types of floors and whatnot. But no, I like to sleep sitting up. And I remember I came back to the couch after using the restroom, man, and I tripped, like semi-tripped. I was going to sit down and then stumbled over something. And I remember hitting my head on the wall behind my couch, man. I ain't think nothing of it. I'm like, oh, that hurt. And then I didn't fall my ass back to sleep. But it didn't hurt to the point where I was just like, man, this is crazy or whatever, or where I had to miss work or anything like that. But I just remember hitting my head, and I hit my head in the back of my head. And most of y'all know that's like the least protected part of your head is in the back, because the skull kind of ends there. That's kind of where your spinal cord starts and all that. So yeah, that's the only thing I could think of that did it. And I'm feeling a lot better now, man. It's starting to kind of level out and everything. I'm still getting that twitch in my lip. But yeah, I think it might have been that, man. And y'all got to understand, I'm always kicking my own ass. Like, I don't be realizing my own strength half the time, man. I'll be doing all kinds of stuff to myself that I ain't even do. Like, I go to kill a bug, and I end up leaving a damn bruise on my arm, man. I remember I was celebrating I'm a big Texas Rangers fan, and they had scored a home run one time, and I hit the wall, and I put a damn crack in the wall. I'm the king of doing stuff like that. About a couple of weeks ago, I burnt the crap out of myself. Yeah, man, I'll be doing all kind of stuff, leaving all types of marks. But that's me. That's the story of my life right there, if that's what it is. But in any case, man, I'm doing a lot better now, and I'm glad to be back with y'all. Had a little hiccup there. At the end of the day, though, I ended up meeting a cute-ass nurse, though, so that shit just kind of worked out just fine. You feel me? Yo, I messed around and turned a negative into a positive. And that's what life's all about, ain't it? Yeah, she was treating me, and I'm like, hey, let me show her my appreciation. Yeah, I turned that into a positive, and I ended up meeting somebody cute. So, it's all about turning lemons into lemonade. You dig? By the way, to take it back to that event that I was telling y'all about, y'all go check out, if y'all are into the herbs, if y'all are trying to step y'all herb game up, if y'all trying to get the raw herbs and like those, getting the herbs in bulk, for the different ailments and whatnot, y'all holla at my sister, Stephonia Roberts out here in Fort Worth. And shouts out to her. I've been pronouncing this woman's name incorrectly for damn near 6 years. It's hilarious. And she finally told me, you've been mispronouncing my name. This completely wrong. I was saying Stephania. I'm just going around calling her that. And every time I would do that, she would kind of give me a little weird look. And I just kind of thought to ask her. I'm like, am I messing your name up? She's like, yeah, I didn't want to say nothing, but no. And I hate doing it. I like getting people's names correct. That's a pet peeve of mine. Not just for people who, mispronounce or spell my name wrong. Because I don't like that PH thing. Because my name's Steve. They always put that little PH on there. And I'm like, man, you don't cut that out. But yeah, I didn't know. But in any case, man, the sister's very thorough. All her herbs she grows organically. No pesticides. She does it all in the backyard. And the place that we had the event was called, it's called the Garden of Eve. And they have a community initiative called the Garden of Eve Project. And it's basically like a venue where she hosts different community events. It's real fly, man. It's very dope. It's almost like a wildlife reserve out in that mug. Yeah, I saw some endangered pandas running around that bitch when I was out there. I'm just playing with y'all. But no, it's very fly. She's very committed to what she does. Man, she gives people different herbs and stuff to treat different ailments. And she's basically doing what, black folks have done going back, all the way to slavery and stuff, with the root workers and whatnot, learn how to fix or curing people actually with different herbs and stuff like that. So y'all check that sister out. Her Instagram is at Garden of Eve Project. And that's at Garden of Eve Project on Instagram, man. Check that sister out. She's very thorough. And cool as hell, too, man. She's got a lot of wisdom, man. That's a sister that has seen some things. Real talk. But in any case, today, in this edition of the Levels of Love podcast, what we're going to talk about is choosing someone who challenges you. Choosing someone who challenges you to be in a relationship with. And the reason I wanted to touch on this particular topic is because I feel like part of the reason people get into relationships is because we're trying to be with someone who's going to make us better, who's going to push us to be better. Someone who's going to push you to evolve. Now, I didn't say force someone to evolve or whatever, but someone who's going to inspire you to want to become a better man or a better woman. I think that's part of getting in relationships, outside of, you just wanting affection or whatever, and, the financial component and, somebody to procreate with. I think men and women were designed to push each other to go further. I think that's one of the fundamental things that is missing sometimes when people desire to be in a relationship or they go and pursue a relationship. A lot of the times I don't think that gets factored in when it comes to choosing somebody. A lot of the time people will just settle, or they'll pick people who don't push them or who will reaffirm or what's the word I'm looking for, that will make them comfortable not progressing and not getting better, who'll accept them never improving and never evolving. And that's what you don't want. You don't want to be in a situation like that because you're constantly supposed to be getting better. And another thing, what relationships do, if you're with somebody, is it's almost like holding a mirror up to you. You learn things about yourself that you could have never learned on your own and being by yourself when you're with somebody. Because it's one thing, to be around your mama or your some cases your daddy or your family members, and a lot of the times they're not going to tell you certain things about yourself because that's family, and y'all just go along to get along because that's what you're supposed to do, quote unquote, supposed to do as a family. But when you get with somebody who's not related to you by blood, or who doesn't have that familiarity with, growing up with you and being around you all the time, and growing up in a household together, there's less of a propensity to want to sit there and just not point certain things out, because the more somebody's around you, they just kind of get used to stuff. If you're meeting somebody and they're not used to this kind of stuff you do, or they, sometimes when you're in a family, there's certain behavior that's just, the family culture. If you're meeting somebody outside of that family culture, they're going to point certain character flaws out about you. And they're going to show you different things about yourself that you didn't know were there. If they're a good partner, that's what they're supposed to do. But you get my point. They're going to call certain things out that you didn't know were there. And that helps you to evolve. You can say, well, dang, I thought that's just kind of the way things were. And that's just the way I've always been doing things. I didn't know that was a big issue. So they can show you certain things in different generational bad behaviors that have been passed down. They can show you those things so that you can correct them. That's what I mean about you needing to actually be with someone in order to evolve. For sure. So basically at the end of the day, there's different levels of evolution that you can't get to without being in a relationship. And that's something I think a lot of people don't take into account. And there are some instances where you need someone else to evolve, to become better. So what are the five, what does that look like? What does it look like? What are the characteristics that someone who challenges you, what are some of the characteristics that they exhibit? Well, I have 5 characteristics on what to look for if you actually want to choose someone that actually challenges you and is there to push you to be a better man or a better woman. Now, the first characteristic is they encourage you to question your own character, which kind of fits into what I was just talking about. They get you to question things that you didn't know were character flaws. Like, for instance, you're a stand-up dude or a stand-up lady, and your partner kind of, you hang around a particular kind of company. You hang around like some ratchet folks, or some people that don't look like they have your best interest in mind. And that person that is getting you to try to question certain things, they ask you, why do you think it's okay to hang around people who do X, Y, Z? They ask you that. And you might not have thought of anything of it, but then you start questioning, like, why am I around so-and-so, man? Why do I hang out with those types of people, man? If, you're a square chick and all your friends is ratchet and ghetto and twerking in the club every week or whatever, and doing thought stuff and involving you in thought situations, and your dude asks you, what about what they're doing are you okay with? Or do you really feel like they would have your back if something went down? Now, notice I didn't say try to come in and be like, and a lot of dudes make this mistake, and I made this mistake in the past, man. We're all learning or whatever. A lot of dudes come in and they try to low-key try to indoctrinate a woman by telling her who she can and can't be friends with. And, women do it too, but a lot of dudes, we kind of look at the woman's friends and we're like, I don't really like what's her face. She's kind of a little bit too out there, man. That's the people that you hang around, you're going to be influenced by them eventually, man. That's human nature. You feel me? Now, I'm not saying like, he should be dictating that, but at the same time, a dude, somebody who's challenging you was going to ask you, well, what do you see in that? What's the value you're getting out of that friendship? And I'm just using that as one example. It could be for a lot of different things. It could be for like a job that you're at where, you're not really, they don't really feel like you're fulfilling your true potential. And they see you've become complacent. Your lady might ask you, do you think that job is really the best you can do? Because I've seen this out of you, these little sparks of brilliance out of you. And I don't feel like you're really, do you feel like you're really applying yourself? And there's something to be said about tact, but they get you to question like your character and your integrity. You seem like a pretty stand-up dude. What you doing drinking all that alcohol like that? Stuff like that, man. And it's things that make you uncomfortable, but they point that mirror back at you, and you need that mirror pointed back at you. You need somebody who actually challenges you. So they get you to question your own character, man. And sometimes you need to question your own character. Like the things that have just been normal to you, you need to be like, man, maybe this isn't the way I need to be doing things. And if you're mature, you'll respect that. You'll respect that a lot. Like when it comes to the women that I date, man, I put them on to different books. I put them on to different programs, like different documentaries. Hey, you might want to check this out, man. I think it's some information and it's right up your alley. Things that they might not know about, or pieces of information they might have not have been made privy to that can help them become a better person. And I always try to suggest it. You don't want to start forcing stuff like, girl, you need to read this book and you need to get your mind right. You need to discover yourself and figure out yourself the way I don't do all that. That's not the way you do that. You feel me? But there's certain things about you that they get you to question. And if no one ever tells you to question these things, you're not going to know to question them. So that's number one. Now, number two, and these all kind of are intertwined, so bear with me. But number two is they don't tell you what you want to hear. And that's very important, man. Not telling somebody what they want to hear. And the reason I say it's so important is because they might not feel like it is in that moment when you're telling them things they don't want to hear about themselves. But at the same time, they'll respect you for it in the long run. And I'm just going to use it. It's kind of a silly example. It's not a real serious example. There are other more serious things I could pick from. But just to give you an example, and guys, y'all know y'all can relate when a woman comes and asks you, how do I look in this XYZ? How do I look? And, a lot of dudes just to kind of go along to get along will be like, oh, babe, you look fine and everything. You look good and everything. A lot of the times when women ask you stuff like that, they really are genuinely unsure. It's not that they're indecisive. It's just they really are unsure. And they want your judgment in that situation. Like, I love it when my lady asks me that. Like, how do I look in this? Because that's deferring to my judgment. Now, I could just say, oh, you look great. And a lot of dudes, they'll do that because, again, they're kind of disinterested in that, and they really could care less. It's just like, hey, man, I think you're attractive, whoop-de-whoop, no matter what. But in a situation like that, I would be very honest, and I would be like, if I don't like something, I'd say, hey, you look silly as hell in that damn dress. I'd let her know straight up. And the thing is, I would actually tell her why I didn't like it. Hey, I don't really think it accentuates your body like that. I think your curves, you don't really compliment your curves like that. Your titties ain't really sitting right up in it. I'll let her know, hey, this is why I don't like it. Now that might, quote unquote, hurt her feelings. She might be a little hurt by that. But number one, I let her know, hey, you asked. So, hey, you asked and you shall receive. And number two, they'll respect you. So if you're honest in that particular kind of manner, when you do tell her, oh man, you look ravishing in that outfit. You look fantastic. Because you were honest with her originally and let her know. And you're like, hey man, I'm not really here to spare your feelings like that. I'm here to be honest with you. That she'll trust you on other things because she knows you're being honest, because she knows you're not trying to spare her feelings. So more important things where she asks you for your judgment on, she's going to believe that you're telling the truth, and she's going to trust that you're telling the truth and that she can trust what you're saying because you're not, you're not afraid to hurt her feelings. That's real talk, fellas. Somebody who tells you what you don't want to hear, and if they're telling you about, if we're picking a more serious example, something like, hey, babe, your finances are horrible. If you're telling if your lady's out here racking up all kinds of debt and she's horrible with the money and everything like that, she needs you to be direct with her and tell her that. And once you've established that rapport of not sparing her feelings, when you come and tell her, hey man, we're going to have to work on this debt. You're horrible with money. She's going to respect that and know that you are telling her the truth and that you have her best interest in mind. And she's going to be receptive to your program and you helping her get her stuff together. I'm putting her under some management and helping her get her stuff together. That's real talk, fellas. So they tell you what you don't want to hear, and you need to hear what you don't want to hear. And yeah, it'll suck for them in the beginning, but once y'all establish a rapport doing that, things will turn out a lot better in the end. Real talk. And the third characteristic that they exhibit is they inspire you to want to do things that scare you. They don't sit there and let you sit in your little comfort zone. And by inspire, what I mean by that is they do things that scare them and they somewhat lead by example. Hey, there's this new promotion. I don't really know if I can do it. It's going to be a lot more hours. I don't know if I have the experience, but hey, you know what? I'm going to go for it. Stuff like that. Once they see you taking these chances and actually doing things that, reasonable chances, don't. Hey, I think I can fly by flapping my arms if I jump off the Empire State. But now I'm not talking about stuff like that. But you get my point. They inspire you because they do things that scare them or daunting tasks. They take on daunting tasks and they take them on boldly. And they're constantly trying to step their game up. Like, for instance, one of the things me and my lady did is, I like to cook, man. I love cooking, man. Cooking is therapeutic to me. That's not a job for me. I love to cook. It relieves a lot of stress for me. But I'm always trying to get better at cooking. This is just something little, but I'm always trying to get better at the dishes that I make. I'm always trying to improve my little recipes or whatever. And me and my whole family, we all big on cooking. We got a lot of recipes that we have passed down. But one thing I've kind of always been scared to make is spaghetti from scratch. And I don't mean just, getting a pack of noodles, putting them in some water and boiling them and putting some meatballs in there. Now, I wanted to learn how to make the noodles. I wanted to learn how to make the meatballs from scratch, the sauce from scratch, all that from scratch. So I was like, I was talking with my lady about it. I'm like, man, I'm trying to really get better at that. And I was like, you know what, man? That'd be cool if I took like a cooking class. How about me and you take a cooking class? Because I know like Central Market has like cooking classes there and stuff. So I was like, man, screw it. I went and did it. I'm like, I'm trying to get better. I'm like, I don't really know. I don't want to get in there and be messing up and doing all kind of stuff. And this is just like a little example. But I was like, I don't want to get in there and just make an ass of myself. But I end up going in there and doing it and end up doing a pretty damn good job at it. They show you how to puree the tomatoes and, how to make the noodles from scratch. And I had to make mine gluten-free, so that was even more difficult. Man, that gluten-free, man, y'all can tell I'm the life at parties. Every party, I'm like, I can't eat that. Y'all already know I'm the life at parties. But in any case, man, they do things that scare them or things that are challenging or daunting to them. And then that inspires you to do stuff that scares you. Like, well, if they did that and they were doubting themselves, then what excuse do I have? They encourage you, hey, you should take that job. You should do X, Y, Z. If you fail, then all right, you failed. At least you know what not to do now. But you don't just sit complacently in your little comfort zone. They encourage you, hey, what's the worst that could happen? A lot of times people are afraid of failing like that's the worst thing that could happen in the world. Now, you learn from failure sometimes. Sometimes failure is a good thing. It helps re-divert you to where you're supposed to be going in life. So that's number 3. And number 4 is they point out your blind spots, man. Now, this one's a little bit more, and all the stuff I'm saying is for men and women, but this is a little bit more for the men. your lady, man, if she really challenges you, she will voraciously, and trust me, I noticed men typically think this is nitpicking, and there are women who take it a little bit too far and start nitpicking, but that's something different. That's a whole other podcast for another time. But a lot of men take this as nitpicking, but if a woman really wants to challenge you, which means in turn she really cares about you, she will have your blind spots covered like a mug. And men, we typically, when it comes to the household and the finances and where we're going, where we're going to live at and stuff like that, we like to see the overall picture. We like to focus on the overall picture as a whole. We're focusing on it's like a military general. Like a military general, he's concerned with the whole entire operation. He's concerned with the whole entire platoon and managing that and the big picture and the strategy and what they're going to do as a whole in each key battle, and how they're going to handle the whole operation as a whole. But it's the soldiers that are on the ground and are seeing things firsthand and who see the small, finer details. You feel me? And it's the same thing with your lady. You're trying to take on, the household. You're trying to take on the finances. You're trying to make sure everybody's good. And, that protector and that leadership provider role and all that. You're focused with the whole operation as a whole, but she's catching those little things that you're missing. She's catching your blind spots. For instance, like, hey, babe, you've been going so hard at work and you've been doing your thing career-wise and you've just been going. Hey, man, I noticed it was like a little growth on your foot when I was rubbing your feet the other night. I saw some something. It was some weird little growth on the bottom of your foot, man. You don't be checking the bottom of your feet, bro? Yeah, I noticed. See, you don't really be clipping your toenails, fam. Your toenails is janky, and I was down there rubbing on them. And I saw that little weird growth when she be throwing like little insults in there at the same time. When I accidentally cut myself on your toenails, I saw a growth down there on the bottom of your foot. Now, I didn't say they won't throw little insults, little jabs in there. They gonna let you know, hey man, you messing up, man. Hey, look. I noticed your collar before you walked out the house. Your collar, let me get your collar, baby. Collar's sticking up. Let me go ahead and help you out with that. But they'll catch your little blind spots. You might have to get little jabs in there, because women do that because they like, aha, I caught something that you didn't. They do little stuff like that. It is what it is. It's all in love, fellas. You dig it? Sometimes it gets annoying because they be the level of detail. It's like, how in the hell did you even? What? Who pays attention to shit like that, man? They get little stuff like that, man. And they're very perceptive to changes in your mood, and that's why we be getting mad at them. Like they be like, "What's wrong?" Even if it's something we're not really thinking about, or even if it's something that we're not really taking that seriously. Now, there was like a story of, I forget who the story is, but I think it was out of that book that I always reference. Things about women men should know. I always reference that book on this program. But in that book, I think she gave the example of this dude and this lady riding in a car. And they were on the first date. And she was basically breaking down how the man thinks and how the woman would think. And the man was driving along and she's like, she's thinking, I wonder if he likes me. It seems like we had a good time. He was laughing. He seems in good spirits. And then the check engine light comes on while the dude's driving. And the dude sees the check engine light, but he don't say nothing. And he's just kind of like, man, ain't this a bitch? I literally just went to the mechanic and she asked him, is everything all right? And he's like, no, yeah, I'm cool. It's all good. And in his mind, it's not all good. He's thinking, man, I just spent money on this part and now this engine light is coming on. This is some bull job. Now he's not thinking that she would know that, and he's not thinking that he needs to communicate that, and really there's not. Because men, what's the point of us telling you that? We don't want to worry you about it, and we know that you can really do anything about it. So we won't keep stuff like that to ourselves. But she could sense that shift in his emotion. And women can do that. That's real talk. And then she talked about what the woman was thinking. The woman was like, man, I did something to make him mad. He doesn't like me. Like, it must have been something I said. She was going through the whole thought process. It was a whole thought process. It was real dope, man. But it basically breaks down how differently that we think. And if something's wrong, 9 times out of 10, your lady can sense that. Even if you're not showing any visible signs, she can pick that type of stuff up. Even if you're not really registering something's wrong, man. Even if something made you mad, because, sometimes we just so busy, go, and so, focused on one thing. Sometimes we don't really even recognize it, man. They can kind of sense stuff like that. And they can really get you to kind of sit down and really process, man, is everything all right with me? So they catch your blind spots, man. Don't ever take that for granted. And men catch women's blind spots too, but it's kind of a little bit different in that regard. But yeah, don't ever take that for granted, fellas. That's a very valuable thing to have in a woman, man. And the fifth and final thing, and again, all these all kind of tie in together, but the fifth and final thing is, the final characteristic is, they hold you accountable and they invite you to hold them accountable. Now that second part was very key. It's one thing to say to your partner, your lady, or your female, or your dude. It's one thing to say to them, hey man, you didn't adhere to this agreement, man. You said you was gonna pick me up at this particular time. You didn't pick me up. You said you were gonna go get the dry cleaning at this time, and you didn't follow through. It's one thing to always kind of call somebody out where they weren't able to follow through or meet what they said that they were going to do. But it's one thing to invite them to hold you accountable. It's one thing to dish it out, but then not be willing to receive that kind of same criticism. Accountability and integrity is everything in a relationship. And what you're saying by inviting them to hold you accountable is, what that's basically saying is, we're on the same level. We're both in adherence to the same commitment equally. We're both equally yoked, so to speak. And when there's accountability on both sides, that's what leads to trust and integrity. That's what leads to, so-and-so's not trying to get over on me. I'm not trying to get over on them. When that's established early on in the relationship, yeah, I get to hold him accountable or her accountable, but I gotta invite them. I have to physically and intentionally invite them to hold me as equally as accountable. That right there knocks out a lot of the problems that you're gonna have to deal with in a relationship. And when I say accountable, I mean in all areas, not just one or two. Whether that's being emotionally accountable, whether that's being physically accountable, whether that's being financially accountable. It goes both ways. And that has to be established early on. And that's got to become the kind of culture of relationships. And I think I need to do a podcast about that, establishing the culture of a relationship, because your relationship needs to have a culture of different behaviors. When it comes to your household, it needs to be a culture, because, eventually y'all want to have kids or whatever. And them growing up in that environment and adopting that culture, if they have that kind of cultural training, so to speak, that's what they're going to take into the real world and into society. So before kids even come into the picture, establishing that culture, and in this case accountability, establishing that, man, goes a long way for generations to come, man. It's not even, and I always like to say this, when it comes to you and the person that you're with, it's not just about you two. It's about everyone who's going to come after you. You have to get with someone thinking of that kind of legacy. You have to get with someone thinking in terms of creating a legacy of upstanding, honorable people of integrity that are going to go out into society and make the community better. That's what relationships are really about, man. And having that accountability towards one another goes a long way, not just for you and your partner in benefiting each other, but society as a whole. And I think when we get into relationships, we don't take things like that into account. But those are the 5 characteristics to look for. Man, I hope I was able to drop some knowledge on y'all, man. I hope I was able to give y'all some good game. I love chopping it up with y'all and getting and doing these, man. I do them for y'all, but I do them for me just as equally, man. It's therapeutic for me to get things off my chest, man. And I've learned a lot from doing stupid stuff in the past, and I've had some successful situations also. But I want people to learn from my successes and failures, as opposed to trying to get out here and humping on their own, man. Real talk, man. So I hope I was able to give y'all some beneficial information. I forgot to establish at the beginning of the program, this edition of the Levels of Love podcast was brought to you by thelevelsoflove.com. That's where you can find this podcast posted. You can see a lot of my written pieces and my artistic pieces. Also, the person who produced the background music for this podcast, her name is Lyrical Lisa. I've known this sister for over a decade. Very cool sister, very talented sister. She was a former, I think she still does spoken word, but she's gotten into the producing realm and gotten really good at it, man. And I use all her music in my podcast. But check that sister out. She's on SoundCloud, man. Real talented sister, man. And I've been knowing her for a while, so go check her out and support her. I'll put her link in the description. But I really appreciate y'all joining me. I hope y'all are good wherever you at. If you have any relationship questions, feel free to hit me up at thelevelsoflove@gmail.com. That's the levelsoflove@gmail.com. Or you can hit my phone number up in the description. I don't remember off the top of my head because it's basically my Google number. But if you have any relationship questions, feel free to hit me up. And I will holler at y'all when I holler at y'all. Y'all take care out there. Peace.